What's up, Pack Nation? It is Pack here. In today's video, I want to talk about the NBA teams that can be added into NBA 2K20 because they already have enough players to make a team. These are teams that are pretty important in NBA history in the 2010s only, and I wanted to see which teams I can make right now. There are 5 teams. As long as there was 5 players on that team, I made a team out of them and I added them onto the list. Before this video starts, if you're one of the 75% of viewers who watch these videos and is not subscribed, don't be lame, be an OG, join the Pack Nation and subscribe. Now, for an example of this team, I remember saying that Lob City Clippers needed to be added into the game because they already had the players like DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin, CP3. It's a fun team. They're not a team anymore and they should add it into the game. 2K agreed with me, and then they ended up adding it for NBA 2K20. Same thing goes with the Championship Cavaliers. They had LeBron and Kyrie on the same team. They remade the team because, well, that was a really good team. And they added it, and they won a championship. They deserve to be in the game. So I'm going to look at 5 teams that are in the 2010s that you can make right now that should be added into NBA 2K20. Let's get this video started. At number 5, with the 2009 and 2010 Orlando Magic. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm not talking about the 2008-2009 Magic, because they made it to the NBA Finals. They're obviously a much more interesting team to add, a better team to add. But this video is focusing on the 2010s, so I wanted to make sure I didn't stray away from that. Not only that, this team is actually really good too. First of all, they made it to the conference finals, even though they lost, I believe, against the Celtics. I believe they did. It was a 4-2 series. And this team was actually really, really good, and it's fun to use in 2K. Obviously, you have Dwight Howard, who was at the time one of, if not the best center in the NBA. Multiple-time defensive MVP. This dude was on fire for many, many years and was the only elite center in the league for a long time. Vince Carter was also on this team for that year. He played 75 games, was averaging 17 points a game on the team. He was still a really good player and probably a very important piece to the team at the time. That's why they made it to the conference finals, because of Vince Carter. Rashard Lewis is also still on the team, was still doing very, very good. You still had Jameer Nelson. You had JJ Redick on the team, who was still a 3-point sniper at the time. You had White Chocolate on the team, who obviously wasn't what he used to be, but he was an NBA champion at the time. He was still a playmaker, so you could add him. Matt Barnes was on the team too. Marcin Gortat was on the team. Ryan Anderson. You have a lot of 3-point snipers on this team with Ryan Anderson, JJ Redick. Like, this team actually has a really, really good amount of talent. And not only that, Vince Carter is awesome to use in the game no matter the team. I mean, if you can make a team in this game and add Vince Carter in it, you should make the team then, because he's so fun to use in this game. It's ridiculous. So these two really athletic powerhouses with good 3-point shooters, a good point guard, Rashard Lewis, who was still really good at the time. Like, this team has everything. A fun playmaker to use. Like, everything you could want from a team, it has it in this team. It would be good competitive online. It's fun to use against your friends. This is actually like almost everything you could want from a team on this list. Looking at the starting lineup, they have Jameer Nelson, JJ Redick, Vince Carter, Rashard Lewis, and also Dwight Howard. And there's only 3 players that are missing on the team that I don't think matter that much. Obviously, you want every single player on the team, but missing these players isn't the end of the world. Players like Michael Petrus, Brandon Bass, and also Anthony Johnson. At the end of the day, those aren't players that are going to end the world for you, so it's fine. The next team at number 4 is the 2014-2015 Atlanta Hawks. Now, first of all, I want you to ignore Elton Brand here. He was on the team. I'll explain in a second. So first off, the 2014-2015 Hawks. This was a team that I believe, I don't remember if they had 4 starters that were all-stars that year or all 5 of them were all-stars. Off the top of my head, I don't remember, but I remember it was one of those situations. They were the number 1 seed in the East, and they're arguably probably the worst number 1 seed in NBA history. Not only that, they failed in the playoffs. They did make it to the conference finals and played against LeBron, and then they got swept. So they're considered probably the worst first seed in NBA history, but that doesn't mean that they weren't a good team at all for a lot of reasons. First of all, they had the talent. Paul Millsap, Al Horford, Jeff Teague, Kyle Korver, I believe were the ones that were all-stars, while DeMar Carroll was also on the team that was a starter, but he wasn't an all-star from my understanding. Thabo Sefolosha was still on the team. Dennis Schroeder, who was younger and not as good at the time, was on the team. Kent Bazemore was on the team. Mike Scott, Shelvin Mack, Mike Muscala, John Jenkins, who I was so surprised was even in this game. Like, you have most of the team right here, and you had Elton Brand, who was a grandpa at the time. Dude was 36 and averaging 3 points a game, and I think he played like 4 games for this team. So he's a 90 overall. You can ignore that for the second. I didn't want to change the ratings because for the most part, most of the teams were already pretty good, so I wasn't going to change them. Elton Brand would be like in the back of the team. But still, Al Horford at the time was arguably the best player on the team. you could say it was Paul Millsap. You could argue that. But they have almost the whole team here. Everybody was a baller. Everybody's so good on this team. Almost everyone can shoot threes too. It's kind of like the spacing this team has is like kind of ridiculous. At least when you're playing in 2K, like all of them have like a B3. Like ignoring Elton Brand, Kyle Korver A+, Stabos Evolution A+, John Jenkins A-, Al Horford A-, Jeff Teague B+, Dennis Schroeder B+, Shelvin Mack B+, Mike Scott B+, Kent Bazemore B+, DeMar Carroll B+, Paul Millsap B. Like everybody can shoot. The whole team. It was crazy. Like the spacing this team had was insane. And they were kind of fun to use, I gotta be honest. And the defense isn't even bad at all. Another team competitively is actually pretty good. A starting lineup of Jeff Teague, Kyle Korver, Paul Millsap, Al Horford, and then it would probably be like DeMar Carroll. Actually, let's fix that. It looks more like this: Jeff Teague, Kyle Korver, DeMar Carroll, Paul Millsap, and Al Horford. And DeMar Carroll would probably be like an 80 overall. This team was really, really solid at the time. The next team at number 3 are the defending champions, the Toronto Raptors. I don't think this team's gonna be added for a little bit, just because this was last year and the only player that's really missing is Kawhi. But we can go into this in a little more detail. So obviously Kawhi Leonard, Finals MVP, went insane that entire playoff series, hit the craziest shot I've ever seen against the Sixers for series. This dude was no joke. Kawhi Leonard, absolutely on this team. Pascal Siakam also on the team when he was averaging 20 points a game in the NBA Finals. He was no joke too. Kyle Lowry, who in Game 7 went nuclear for the first quarter. One of the biggest reasons, and has been a Toronto Raptor native for so long. I mean, look at this dude. This guy's been playing for the Raptors for so long and has never really stopped, really. Even this year, he's been doing really good for them too. Fred VanVleet had some pretty important shots in the playoffs as well. Wasn't as good as he is this year, right? But he was still pretty good. Jonathan Valanciunas was on the team, but he was traded. I didn't want to not add him because he was still part of that team and he was still eligible for a ring. So technically he was a part of the team. So I didn't want to like ignore him. So he's still on the team too. Serge Ibaka, 80 overall on the team. OG Anunoby was on the team. Norman Powell, DeLon Wright was on the team. Danny Green, Marcus All, Jeremy Lin, CJ Miles, Jody Meeks, and I love me some Jody Meeks, Patrick McCaw. Like this team has ridiculous amount of talent. Everybody's pretty raw when you really think about it. Like when you look at this team, everybody's been pretty good in the NBA. Like everybody. Like I'm looking at everyone here, and they've had good moments in their careers. So even CJ Miles has had pretty good seasons, like 13 points a game. He was pretty consistent, like a 10-point per game scorer for his career until lately. Jody Meeks had, I believe, one good season, a 16-point per game season with the Lakers. Like this whole team's had like a pretty good career, except for like Patrick McCaw, who's by the way a 3-time champion, so respect him. This whole team has done a lot. They're literally not missing a single player, and that's the only team on this list that's not missing a single player. Yeah, this team was ridiculous. And they should be added. The next team at number 2 is the 2017-2018 Warriors. I know it says 2015-2016 on the top left. Ignore that. I just used this team to put the roster in. But this is the 2017-2018 Warriors that won the NBA championship. I could have added the year before, but I thought this team swept in the finals. So I was like, I'd rather have this team just because Steph Curry and Kevin Durant would probably have the same rating. Maybe Kevin Durant even higher. Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Andre Iguodala, JaVale McGee, who was on the team too, Chris Boucher, who's not going to have the high of a rating, but was on the team. Jordan Bell was on the team, Damian Jones, Sean Livingston, Zaza Pachulia, I hate you so much, Omri Caspi, Quinn Cook, Nick Young, like Swaggy P, Kevin Looney. So it's pretty similar to Warriors team that's already in this game, but because you have Kevin Durant and a couple other players, it's a little different. The only player that's really missing on this team is David Lee, but you guys know how good this team is. This is arguably talent-wise the greatest team in NBA history, and I don't really see a counter argument to this. I mean, this team was stacked, and that's an understatement. Like, look at the team. Besides the usual suspects, you also had JaVale McGee. You had Chris Boucher, who's by the way really good right now. You had Nick Young, Quinn Cook. Like everybody on this team was also really, really good talent-wise, and yeah, no surprise they swept in the final. And finally, the last team at number 1 is the 2009 and 2010 Los Angeles Lakers that won the NBA championship that year. You could argue which team was better, 2008, 2009, or 2009, 2010. I'm adding the 2010 Lakers with a twist because there's not enough players to add this team. There's only 5 players, and technically there's only 4. We have Kobe Bryant, who, rest in peace to the guy, 98 overall, was in like probably like the prime of his career, was going ham those years. Pau Gasol, who was also the second best player on this team easily, and an integral part to the team as well. Derek Fisher, who was not that high of a rating at the time, but still, he was a point guard on the team. Trevor Ariza, I added onto the team. He was the only player I could have added. that was from the 2008-2009 teams. So still part of one of the championship back-to-back teams. But instead, I added him to this team because there wasn't enough players to make 5, so I just added him on because he was technically kind of a part of it, kind of. And then Luke Walton, also I was able to add on to the team. We're missing a lot of players, especially some really important ones. We're missing Andrew Bynum, which the game does not have the rights to. Meta World Peace, which 2K does not have the rights to. Lamar Odom, they do have the rights to, but because he wasn't in any roster, I couldn't add him onto the team. But he is in my team, so they do have the rights to Lamar Odom, so they can add him onto this team. Shannon Brown, they don't have the rights to, or at least they don't have him in the game. Jordan Farmar, Sasa Vucevic, or Vujicic, Adam Morrison. Like, there's players that are missing from this team. But at the end of the day, if you put Lamar Odom on this team, I feel like this is enough to make the team happen and play with him. So I wouldn't complain if the team was added, but they would still need to get a rights to some of the players still. But still, this is a good team. And I feel like they have enough to make a team. Like, they've done worse. There's a team that only have 5 players and they make a team anyway. So this is enough. I think they could do this, especially to honor Kobe. Like, you know, add a team for him, like that'd be cool. But what do you guys think? Leave it in the comments below. Did I miss any teams from the 2010s that you guys want to be added? Leave it in the comments below. And if you like my channel, give it a sub, and I'll see you guys next time.